It is 12 o'clock, so I think we are going to start this morning session. Good morning and welcome on behalf of Liverpool and the rest of the Chambers part of the Chamber Trade Academy. My name is Elena Enciso and I'm Head of International Trade at Liverpool Chamber. Today we are going to hear an update on the Liverpool City Region Freeport. There are some misunderstandings about the area covered by the Freeport, its purpose, benefits for the local and wider economy. So hopefully we will clarify this in today's webinar. Before I start, I wanted to put into context the Chambers Trade Academy. This is an initiative of 10 chambers to provide short visual sessions covering from the basics of exporting and importing to the latest updates on things like trading with Northern Ireland, transition to CDS, or specific rules covering trading with a particular market. As you know, chambers are at the heart of the business community, and we offer support to businesses of all sizes and sectors, covering things like the ones you are seeing on the screen: international trade training, customs brokerage, Forex, management of letters of credit, trade events. So to find out more about how to become part of the Chamber Trade Network, please contact your closest chamber. Moving on to today's topic, the UK government announced in January 2020 their intention to establish a number of free ports across the UK. That was part of the levelling up agenda and also part of the government's plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. Our guest speaker today, Giles Jones, a project manager at the Liverpool City Region Freeport, is going to give us an update on this ambitious project. So without any further delays, over to you, Giles.
Thanks very much, Elena, and good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be speaking to you today about the Liverpool City Region Freeport. If you could move on to the next slide, please, Elena. Thank you very much. So, as I say, it's great to be speaking with you, and I'm conscious that we've got attendees joining us from different parts of the country outside the Liverpool City region. So I will try and keep this presentation relevant to businesses and chambers who are slightly further afield. There are a number of benefits to the Freeport that can apply to businesses operating right across the country. So it's not just confined to companies who are operating within the Liverpool City region. So Elena gave a nice introduction there in terms of the sort of brief backstory in terms of freeports within the UK. This slide just gives a bit more context on what a freeport is. And the first thing to say is that it doesn't just relate to the Port of Liverpool itself. That is a common misconception that we have. Lots of people think that the Freeport is just the area in and around the Port of Liverpool, but it's actually more of a special economic zone, more similar to what you may be aware of in markets like the Middle East, China, South America. Free ports, free zones, special economic zones are quite well-established models in different markets, but they are new to the UK, as Elena mentioned. So the first point there, free ports are special areas within the UK borders where different economic regulations apply. That's absolutely correct. And throughout the course of this presentation, I will come on to some of the tax and customs incentives that apply to businesses operating within the Liverpool City Region Freeport. The idea of freeports is to create high quality jobs, regenerate areas and secure inward investment into the 8 areas that they are established within England. You can see a map there on the right hand side of the 8 English freeports. You'll probably notice that 7 of the 8 are coastal areas, areas where there has historically been large ports, big maritime activity, and that certainly applies to Liverpool. There is also a free port in East Midlands, which relates to the area around East Midlands Airport, which is quite a significant cargo hub for the UK. I'll come on to it in a bit more detail later, but we've established 3 tax sites within the Liverpool City region. These are specific areas which have been redlined by Treasury, in which businesses can access some quite attractive tax incentives in an intention to secure inward investment. And as I say, I will come on to the three areas that those apply in a little bit more detail later on in the presentation. And then the final point there is that free ports are not new. As I mentioned, they're new to the UK, but they're well established in markets around the world, particularly places like the Middle East. They're well established in the US, where they're referred to as foreign trade zones. But the concept of special economic areas is certainly not new. Thanks very much, Elena. Next slide, please. There we go. So this slide really sets out what the objectives are for UK free ports from a policy perspective. And you can see the three overarching objectives there in terms of what the government is aiming to do through the Freeport programme. We want to establish them as national hubs for global trade and investment. We sort of firmly believe that the customs incentives that businesses can apply for through the Freeport model will really make them quite attractive places to undertake international trade. I'll come on to them in a bit more detail later on, but effectively businesses can access quite a wide-ranging series of customs easements that are designed to make bringing goods in and out of Freeport zones a more straightforward process. And that's the thinking in terms of developing national hubs for global trade through the Freeport programme. We also, through the tax sites, expect to see quite a lot of investment coming into Freeport areas. So from a trade and investment perspective, Freeports have a key role to play in the national policy agenda. We also want to promote Freeports as areas of regeneration and, as a result of that, job creation. So the three tax sites that we have in the Liverpool City region are all brownfield areas, post-industrialised, and in need of investment in order to regenerate. And we expect that the businesses that arrive on those sites will create high quality jobs as a result of that. And then the final point there is to create a hotbed of innovation. Government is very keen that Freeports develop their own innovation agendas. And I'll touch on what we're looking to do from an innovation perspective in Liverpool in a bit more detail throughout the course of this presentation. But that's really just a snapshot of what Freeports are intending to do from a policy perspective. Thanks, Elena. So this gives a bit more detail in terms of how that policy will be delivered. As I mentioned earlier, we're looking to develop a range of custom sites throughout the Liverpool City region. These are areas where HMRC have been in, worked with the businesses who are applying for custom site status, and agreed that they're operating to a sufficient standard that they can be considered a custom site operator. The benefits of becoming a custom site operator are quite significant. Businesses can bring goods into one of those custom sites with import duty and import VAT suspended. They can hold on to those goods indefinitely and then either release them or re-export them as and when they need to. So again, I'll drill down on the benefits of a custom site later on in the presentation, but that's just really a snapshot. I've touched on some of the tax reliefs that businesses can apply for. Again, on those three specific tax sites, which I'll go into a bit more detail on later, there's quite an attractive suite of tax incentives to entice businesses to invest, create jobs, and undertake research and development on those sites. Planning reforms is a really interesting angle of the Freeport agenda. Government is quite keen that businesses who are investing in Freeport sites can benefit from a supportive planning environment. I'm sure everyone on the call has experienced some of the delays in the planning process. And the idea is that on a Freeport site, that can be expedited while still going through all the normal planning procedures. It can be done with a bit more resource behind it to make sure that development can take place in a timely manner. I've touched on the innovation. As I said, government is really keen that Freeports become hotbeds for innovation, to use their terminology. And in Liverpool, we've got two clear focuses, one being around decarbonisation of freight movements, and we're also keen to support the digitalisation of trade, which I'm sure colleagues on the call will have a vested interest in from a chamber perspective. Freeport's benefit from 175 million pounds of seed funding. That's basically allocated on a 25 million pound per Freeport basis. So we, as the Liverpool City Region Freeport, will access 25 million pounds of that, and we're investing in infrastructure to make the Liverpool City region a really attractive place to invest, to improve connectivity, and to, as I say, appeal to international investors. And you can see a breakdown there of some of the investments that we're looking to make. So, for example, Parkside in St Helens, which may be familiar to some colleagues on the call, that's one of our 3 tax sites, and we're supporting with £9 million to invest in a link road linking Parkside to the M6. So again, example of how we're improving connectivity across these sites. And we're also working closely with, I should say, the Department for Business and Trade rather than the Department for International Trade. We're working closely with DBT to promote Freeports to international investors and businesses who are doing international trade, and to really make the case for Freeports as an attractive launch pad for the UK market. Thanks, Elena. So this slide gives an overview in terms of some of the key sites that we're talking about here. As I mentioned at the outset, it's best to really think of Freeports as special economic zones rather than just relating to the ports themselves. The Port of Liverpool is a really important strategic gateway for us. A vast majority of the trade that comes into the region comes via the Port of Liverpool, and it's still very much the gateway, particularly for the North American market. I think still about 45% of US originating goods that arrive into the UK come via Liverpool. So we still do very much see Liverpool as the gateway to North America. Just to point out some of the key sites that we're talking about here, the red sites are the tax areas that I spoke about. So these are the specific areas that businesses can invest and access some quite attractive tax incentives. And we've also got some of the key other strategic points of interest in terms of some of the big existing businesses like AstraZeneca. We've also got the airport, which is developing as a hub for cargo, and some of the other key industrial sites such as 3MG Widnes, Stanley Industrial Estate, and so on. So we expect, as you can see on the left-hand side there, to develop a number of custom sites throughout the Freeport project. We also expect to develop 800 acres of land for commercial development, bringing in £800 million of new investment and creating 10,000 jobs. So we're still at the relatively early stages of delivery of the Freeport, but we're starting to see the early signs of these objectives being delivered, which is really encouraging. Thank you, Elena. So I'll just go into a bit more detail on how a custom site works within a Freeport, because I think this will probably be of interest to some of the colleagues on the call from a chamber perspective. So whilst the tax sites I've referred to are those 3 specific areas that have been redlined by Treasury, actually any business in the Liverpool City region area can apply to become a custom site. So that is an area stretching from Wirral all the way over to Port Salford, about a 45-kilometre radius. Any business within that region can apply to become a custom site. It won't be suitable for every single business, but that opportunity is there if it would make sense for them to do it. So what is a custom site operator? A custom site operator is effectively a company that has gone through a process with HMRC to achieve CSO status. So that involves evidencing that you're operating to a high standard, complying with trusted trader schemes such as authorized economic operator status, and effectively evidencing to HMRC that you are a responsible operator who can be relied upon to access some of the customs easements that come with that status. So we've currently got 2 companies who have gone through that process. They are SSO International Freight and Logistics up in St Helens. And just last week, we had our second business approved, which was Applied Nutrition, a sports nutrition business in Knowsley. So those businesses are able to benefit from some of the easements that you can see listed on the slide here. Duty suspension. So businesses who are operating as custom site operators can bring goods into their site, and any import duty or any import VAT will be suspended until those goods enter the domestic market. So that works in a similar way to customs procedures like customs warehousing or temporary storage. The benefit of the Freeport model is that that status is indefinite. So a business could bring a good in, hold it indefinitely, and release it as and when they need it. So we're seeing lots of interest from businesses who are looking to bring some of their raw materials closer to the production facility. They quite like the idea of being able to hold on to their raw materials or their components until the point that they actually need them in the manufacturing or the production procedures. Duty inversion, the second one there, that works in a similar way to inward processing relief. So a business can bring a component part in to the Freeport custom site, use it in the manufacturing process, and then pay a lower duty of rate dependent on what the finished good would be. So the example I tend to use here would be in the automotive sector. Obviously, Liverpool City region has got quite a strong reputation for the automotive sector. Businesses like JLR, Ford, and Stellantis, based just in Ellesmere Port, just outside the region, they could utilize duty inversion in their manufacturing procedure by potentially importing a component. So, for example, a car engine at 10% could be imported, utilized in the manufacturing procedure to create a finished good, in this case a car, and then exported at the lower level of duty, which would be applicable to that finished good, in this case a car. So that provides a bottom line saving for businesses, as I say, in a similar way to a procedure like inward processing relief, but we're seeing strong interest from companies with international supply chains for that one. Duty exemption is probably fairly well understood, but again, that applies to custom site operators. So businesses can bring goods in that might attract a level of duty, and if they're being re-exported, no duty would be applicable there. So, again, a relatively well understood procedure there. And the final benefit that you can see on this slide is movements by conduct. So businesses that are importing goods into a custom site can declare that on their import declaration, and goods should be able to move slightly easier into that custom site than if they were being held in a non-custom site area. So we're starting to see how that's working with the two custom site operators that we have established here in the Liverpool City region. Thank you, Elena. This just gives a bit more detail on some of the customs benefits. I won't go through them in detail. I mean, the key message from the customs perspective is really that the Freeport offering is quite substantial in the sense that it brings together a lot of the existing customs procedures under one umbrella. So, as I mentioned on the previous slide, duty inversion works in a similar way to inward processing relief. Duty exemption or duty suspension works in a similar way to things like customs warehousing or temporary storage. The benefit really of going down the custom site operator model is that you can benefit from all these procedures under one umbrella by going through one procedure with HMRC. So it does open up lots of opportunities for businesses, particularly those who are either engaged in international supply chains, or also businesses who are perhaps third-party logistics firms and are bringing in and holding stock on behalf of their clients. So we're seeing quite strong interest, and we've got quite a full pipeline in terms of businesses who are going through the process with HMRC. Just in terms of that process, I know companies are always quite keen to understand how it works. It tends to be about a 4 to 6 month process for businesses, depending on how established they are. HMRC, as you would expect, would come in and undertake an audit of the site that's proposed to become a custom site. They would look at site security. They'd want to understand how goods are held, how goods are recorded as they come in and leave the site. And as and when they're satisfied that the business is operating to a high level, they would then provide custom site operator status to the business, and they would be able to start benefiting from all the easements that we've gone through. So I won't go into too much detail on what we can see here, but happy to answer any questions on the customs elements of Freeports towards the end of the presentation. Thank you, Elena. So the other key element really of the Freeport offering relates to the tax sites. These are those three areas that I touched on very briefly earlier that have literally been redlined by Treasury. And any business investing in these sites can effectively take advantage of some of the tax incentives that you can see listed here. So the thinking behind this sort of suite of benefits is that it's really designed to be exponential. So the more a business invests or the more people they employ on the tax site, the more their tax saving will be, and the more attractive it is for them to invest. So I'll run through them quickly, but you can see here full business rates relief for new businesses who invest on the tax sites. That was launched in 2021 and is due to run until 2026. So businesses can still benefit from 3 years of business rate relief. I should say we are working with the rest of the UK freeports to have these incentives extended because as any sort of large infrastructure project, freeports have been delayed with supply chain difficulties and sort of general delays. So we're very keen that these incentives are extended to ideally 2029, 2030. But as it stands, they are due to expire in 2026. Businesses investing in a Freeport tax site will also benefit from stamp duty land tax relief. So that's at 0%. So, attractive for businesses who are looking to acquire space within one of the Freeport tax sites. There's also employer national insurance contribution relief for the first £25,000 of an employee salary. So that works out at, for an employee on £25,000 or more, it works out at a saving of about £2,000 per year for the employer. So again, the more people that they employ, the bigger the saving, and the more attractive it becomes for them. Enhanced structures and buildings allowance, that's really designed for businesses who are investing in their sites, and that's a 10% deduction per annum, again up until 2026 currently. And finally, enhanced capital allowances there. So for businesses who are investing in plant or machinery equipment, they can write that off against their tax return in a similar way to the super deduction that the government has implemented relatively recently. So that is the full suite of tax incentives that businesses will benefit from if they invest in one of the tax sites. Thank you, Elena. So just going back to this site, this slide again, just to point out, the three sites that we're talking about here: Wirral Waters in Birkenhead. That's located around the Birkenhead docks for any colleagues on the call who are aware. That's a Peel Land and Property Development, and they're developing sites from around 26,000 to 92,000 square feet there. So it's quite a nice offering for small and medium-sized businesses, potentially those who are not looking for 400,000 square feet. And we're seeing a really strong interest from businesses in the marine sector, the energy sector, automotive sector. There really is quite a strong interest in Wirral Waters, particularly because it's located so close to the docks in Birkenhead, and therefore has good access to water. The second one is 3MG down in Holton. 3MG meaning three modal gateway, so good railroad and sea connectivity to 3MG. That ranges from around 80,000 to 550,000 square feet. So real kind of diverse offering there in terms of what's available. We're seeing really good progress with that. So the first site at 3MG is due for practical completion next month. So businesses can start to move their operations onto these sites from next month and start to take advantage of some of the tax incentives that we've seen. And then the third and final one there is Parkside over in St Helens to the east of the map. Parkside is a former colliery, so sort of traditional brownfield site that's really in need of regeneration. It's good connectivity to the M62. And as I mentioned earlier, the Freeport is making an £8 million investment to link it up to the M6 as well. So it's really attractively situated in terms of road connectivity. And that will be the largest of our three tax sites as well. We're sort of seeing a lot of interest there from the logistics sector, as you probably expect, because of the location of it. Thanks, Elena. this just gives you a sort of visual representation of the 3 tax sites that we're talking about here. As I mentioned, they have literally been redlined by Treasury. So anywhere within these red lines, businesses can invest and take advantage of those quite attractive tax incentives. And you can see some aerial shots there of where they're situated, as well as some 3D renders of what we expect the sites to look like. Thank you. Next slide, please. I'll run through these really quickly, but this again just gives you a bit more detail on each of the 3 tax sites. Liberty Park in Widnes, you can see there the proximity to JLR and Alstom. So we're seeing really strong interest from the automotive sector to invest here. Couple of units available there. A 365,000 square feet speculative build, or 150,000 square foot building as well. So this slide is a little bit out of date now. Planning applications have been submitted. They started on site in Q3 2022, and as I mentioned earlier, they're expected to be at practical completion at the end of next month. So it's gone quite smoothly in terms of the build for Liberty Park and 3MG down in Widnes. Next slide, please. This is Wirral Waters. As I mentioned, Peel Land and Property Development, very close proximity to the Birkenhead docks, as you can see here, which is making it quite attractive for businesses who are looking to bring components in and bring goods out. MEA Park, as it's being branded, relates to the marine, energy and automotive sectors, which we kind of anticipate will really be interested in investing in Wirral Waters. And you can see there's a focus on supply chains, modern methods of construction, manufacturing, logistics and innovation. And the good thing about Wirral Waters, as I mentioned earlier, is the plots are slightly smaller than some of the other sites as well. So really does create opportunities for SMEs. And then the final of our 3, sorry, Elaine, I'll just run through the last slide very, very quickly. This is the final of our 3 tax sites, Parkside over in St Helens. As I mentioned, by distance, the largest of our tax sites, very close location to the M6 there, as you can see, and also very close to the M62, as well as Newton the Willows train station. So again, ideal for logistics, but also strong interest from manufacturing companies as well. Thank you. Just wanted to touch on this really quickly. The retention of business rates is a really key element to the whole Freeport project. So the idea behind Freeports is that as businesses move onto these sites, the local authorities in which they're located will actually retain the business rate. So rather than them going into sort of central government and being allocated accordingly, actually Wirral for Wirral Waters, St Helens for Parkside and Halton for 3MG will actually retain 100% of those business rates that are derived from tax site activity. So we're starting to see Wirral, for example, already retain business rates from some of the activity that's taking place at Wirral Waters. And this really allows them to borrow against future retention of business rates and actually develop quite interesting regeneration strategies from that business rate retention. So this is almost a legacy that we expect Freeport to deliver in terms of developing business activity, retaining those rates locally, and then kind of fueling further regeneration through allocation of that funding. So this is an element that we don't often talk about when it comes to Freeports, but I just wanted to kind of point that out as a key element of the Freeport project. Thank you, Elena. And then this is just a sort of case study of some of the conversations we've been having with potential tax site tenants. So, this is a business that's looking to invest approximately 40 million in developing one of the tax sites and then employing up to 500 new employees. So we actually did the sums on what the tax incentive would be for this business should they decide to invest on one of the tax sites, and we've kind of broken it down here. So, based on 500 new employees, that would be an employees' national insurance contribution relief benefit of over £3 million. Structures and buildings allowance estimated to be about 1.7 million. Benefit of enhanced capital allowances about £1 million based on the investment in plant and machinery equipment that they're looking to make. 5 years full business rates relief for just over £8 million, and stamp duty land tax relief of £500,000. So we're actually able to establish that on a £40 million investment with 500 new employees, they'd be looking at a £12 million cash terms tax incentive by investing on one of our 3 tax sites. So just a nice kind of sort of illustration of what the tax incentive would be. Thanks, Elena. This is just really the final slide. It kind of gives a snapshot of what we're looking to do, both in terms of the customs and the tax incentives that businesses can apply for. Some of the key messages I'd really like to sort of pick out before we finish is, again, just to reiterate, it's not just the Port of Liverpool or the area around the Port of Liverpool that can benefit from this. It's actually the Liverpool City region, stretching from Wirral all the way over to Port Salford, just outside Manchester. You don't even have to be a business based in the Liverpool City region to utilize one of the custom sites. So as I mentioned, SSO International Freight, one of our first approved custom sites, they're based in St Helens. They're actually holding on to stock for businesses based in Manchester, based in Cheshire, who are, through their work with SSO, able to suspend any import duty, any import VAT payments. So, you know, it's a project that's designed to benefit the Liverpool City region, but we are really confident that it will have wider ramifications for businesses right across the Northwest, in Greater Manchester, in Warrington, in North Wales as well. And obviously the tax sites, you know, they are sort of confined to those redlined areas, but we expect the increase in business activity there to kind of have knock-on effects for suppliers and other businesses who are based further afield. So that really is the presentation in a nutshell. It's quite a lot to go through in sort of half an hour, but hopefully I've shed a bit of light on what Liverpool City Region Freeport is and what we're looking to do. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have for the next sort of 10 minutes or so.
Thank you very much, Giles. It's been a really comprehensive overview of this ambitious project, and hopefully will translate in the creation of jobs and more investment. As I wait for some more questions to come through, I have one here about what are the industries and sectors that are prominent within the Liverpool Freeport at the moment?
Yeah, it's really wide ranging actually. So as I mentioned, we, you know, over the 3 tax sites, we're really seeing a mix of investor interest. So Wirral, because of its sort of proximity to the sea, we're seeing, you know, strong interest from businesses that need that ability to bring goods in and out via sea freight. So, you know, companies with kind of complex international supply chains are really quite attracted to that. And it's also kind of interesting to see the kind of increase in inquiries from businesses in energy. So hydrogen, that's starting to make you know, an appearance in Wirral. And then Parkside, because of its kind of proximity to the motorway network and the rail network as well, is really kind of perfect for businesses in the logistics sector, but also manufacturing as well. And then down in Holton in 3MG, you know, again, close proximity to JLR, to some of the life sciences businesses, particularly GlaxoSmithKline. And again, that's sort of being reflected in the inquiries that we're seeing. So it's a mixed bag, but I think there are opportunities for businesses in virtually any sector, really.
Thank you very much for that. Another question is about, I think you mentioned that in the presentation, but how long roughly could take a business to become a custom site operator?
Yeah, thanks very much for the question, Susanna. And it's a really good question. There's no kind of one size fits all approach. I think it really depends on the sort of suitability of the business to go through the process. So if I use SSO as an example, they are a third-party logistics firm. They're established in St Helens, where they had a relatively new facility that had good kind of physical infrastructure, so that the site was very secure in terms of, you know, gates coming into and onto the site, had good kind of CCTV coverage. So HMRC, when they undertook the audit, were quite impressed with how sort of physically secure the site was, and also the standards to which they were holding on to the goods that were coming onto the site. So SSO probably went through the process in about 4 months, which I would say is probably at the quicker end of the sort of spectrum in terms of becoming a custom site operator. We have worked with businesses, and we are continuing to work with businesses who have been looking to become custom site operators for potentially 9 months in some cases. They may have faced delays because they might have had to make an investment in some of their security, so they may have needed to invest in new fencing or new CCTV. HMRC are also quite interested in IT policies, so they like to understand how businesses are recording goods that are coming into and out of the sites. So some businesses have had to sort of implement new IT policies. But the other point I'd make on the custom side of the Freeport offering is that, as I mentioned, any business in that Liverpool City region can apply to become a custom site operator, and the zone actually stretches out as far as Port Salford. So, you know, sort of almost kind of West Manchester. Those businesses would also be able to become custom site operators. So the message for businesses who are operating in Greater Manchester is just, you know, speak to us and see is there an opportunity to potentially establish a custom site, and I'd be more than happy to speak to any of Susanna's members.
Thank you for that, Giles. One other question comes from a local company about if you are authorized economic operator, does this speed the CSO application?
Yeah,
the answer is yes. But...
really good question, and the answer is definitely yes. Companies who are operating at authorized economic operator status are obviously well attuned at you know, operating to a high standard when it comes to holding goods, recording movements of freight. So we're finding that businesses who are either already authorized economic operators or are going through the process are in a much better position to become a custom site operator as well. The two kind of complement each other very nicely.
Thanks for that. Another question is about how long do the tax reliefs and incentives apply for?
Yeah, so I touched on it briefly in the presentation. At the moment, as you said in your introduction, Elena, the government actually announced Freeports in early 2020. It was Chancellor Rishi Sunak at the time, obviously, you know, gone to become Prime Minister, who announced it. And the idea was that they would last for 5 years, so that would take us up to 2026. As I say, Liverpool, along with the other 7 English freeports, have seen kind of delays on construction, and you know, actually establishing the freeports has taken longer than I think the government anticipated. So at the moment they're due to expire in 2026, in April 2026, but we have been lobbying for these tax incentives to be extended to 2029 to kind of get us back to that kind of 5-year sort of project. We haven't sort of been told that you know that is going to happen, but we've kind of been told to sort of keep an eye on the autumn statement in November as when something might be announced in terms of extension of Freeport tax incentives. So I'll keep you up to date with that, but we're hoping to hear news soon of an extension.
Thanks for that. I think this is all we have time now for the questions and answers, but if anybody in the audience wants to ask any question later on, they can email export@liverpoolchamber.org.uk, and we will be happy to forward them to the Liverpool Freeport for more clarification. Just wanted to end up. Thank you everybody for joining this session, and a reminder of the upcoming ones, part of the Chamber Trade Academy series. Next one on the 19th of October. You see different topics, USA, IP, logistics, is something for everybody. We really hope you enjoy today's session, and we look forward to welcoming you in the next one. Thanks very much. A reminder of all the chambers that take part in these sessions is here in the last slide. And see you soon. Thanks for your attention.